If you've been told that success requires grinding nonstop, sacrificing your family, your health, your well-being, and working 80-hour weeks, today's conversation is going to challenge everything you believe. In today's episode, I have the opportunity, the privilege to sit down with Ryan Pineda, husband, father, man of faith, elite entrepreneur and business owner, multiple seven-figure businesses, an eight-figure empire, author of The Wealthy Way, author and creator of countless online real estate investing courses and educational content. He's flipped over 1,000 properties in his lifetime. And the man has a radically different approach to success, alignment with faith, family, and entrepreneurship. In today's conversation, we're going to talk about that radically different approach to success, one rooted in leverage, clarity, and intentional constraint. Ryan's going to share with you how he built wealth, massive amounts of wealth, while simultaneously playing professional baseball. He's going to dig into how he strategically and intentionally uses limitation to force innovation, and how prioritizing his family over his business has actually accelerated his success. Buckle up, a lot to learn in this episode. Make sure you have something to take notes with handy, because we're going to dive in and we're going to move fast. So let's get started. Ryan, in your book, The Wealthy Way, I think one of the most profound pieces of advice that I learned is before you even started writing. It's your dedication. And I want to share the dedication here and get you to expand upon it. This book is dedicated to all the entrepreneurs who were told you have to grind and sacrifice everything to be successful. Was there a point in your life where you thought grinding was the only way to have success?
You know, it's interesting. My story is unique in that I started out as an entrepreneur because I had to be. You know, I was a pro baseball player and making $1,200 a month. And so, like, for me, I'm just like, yo, I want to play pro sports. One day I'll make money playing baseball, and that's going to be my life and my career. But in the meantime, I'm going to have to work and provide, because I don't make enough playing baseball. The only problem is I can't get a job because I leave for 6 months out of the year. And I also, have to train and practice and like really own my schedule. And so I was forced into entrepreneurship. And I just remember, as I read entrepreneurial books and things, it always was like, the message was grind, grind, grind. It was like, hey, you got to put in the work. You got to work 80-hour weeks.
Yeah.
And I was told the same thing in baseball too, by the way. It's like, bro, you got to just do X, Y, Z if you want to be great. I won't say that I really bought into it, really, because I've always been a guy who's been against the grain no matter what. I'm just like, if that's what they say, let's try and do it a different way, And so I kind of fell into doing entrepreneurship in a way that was like delegated from the jump, because I had to. I started flipping couches, and that was like my first successful business. I was making 10 grand a month net, just flipping couches on Craigslist. And so eventually, I realized like, oh, I could just have somebody else drive the couches and pick them up. Like, I don't have to do this, So let me do that. And then, I started flipping houses, and that became, how I became a millionaire. And I remember like my last 3 years playing baseball, 2015 to 2017, I was, starting my house flipping journey while still playing. And it was like, well, these houses are still going to be here when I leave, and they got to get fixed up. They have to get renovated. We have to sell them. So I'm either going to quit baseball and go all in on flipping houses, or I'm going to find a way to do both. And I was like, I'm not quitting baseball. So I'm going to find a way to do both. Yeah. And so I started hiring people, and then I started making money. And by that last year when I retired, that year in 2017, I made $750 grand flipping houses while playing pro baseball, both at the same time in different states, And I was like, I don't think business is as crazy as people make it out to be. Like, if you just hire the right people, you don't have to do everything. And so from that point forward, as an entrepreneur, I always started to think, all right, how do I just not be the guy having to do everything? So I can go like live my life and play baseball or play golf or be with my kids, be with my family. And it's served me well for all these years.
Was that ability to delegate something you had been exposed to, had role modeled for you, or did you just learn it out of necessity based on where you wanted to go?
Yeah, it was necessity. And, there's a pastor, his name is Craig Groeschel, really famous pastor, has a leadership podcast too that, just lots of people like listening to. But I'll never forget this quote because it sums up perfectly what happened to me. He said that limitation leads to innovation. And so the more limits you force upon yourself, the more innovative you must be. So like if we were to just think in a perfect scenario where we had unlimited resource, right? Like I have millions of dollars, I have, all this time and all these different things. Like your options are you have like lots of options to go and figure out how to make money and do stuff, right? And so you usually just pick like a very generic option. You're like, oh, well, I got all this stuff. Like if I just put my money in the stock market, then it's all good, right? But the moment you start adding limits to your situation, it forces you to be innovative to get the same result. So if I'm like, hey, here's the limits. I'm going to play baseball. I'm going to leave 6 months out of the year. And during the 6 months I'm home, I'm going to be training for 4 hours a day. But I also want to make $250,000. How the heck is this possible? And most people would say, oh, that's not possible. Like nobody else that I was playing minor league baseball with did it. Nobody. Right? And so it'd be easy to just be like, yeah, I mean, it's just not possible. If you could just give lessons on the side, because that's what most guys did. I run a couple camps and whatever. I can make a few bucks. And I'm like, screw that, dude. Like there has to be a way to do both. But I'm going to have to innovate and do something that no one's ever done before. And so for me, I start flipping couches. Like nobody was doing that. There was no YouTube or Instagram teaching people how to do this or even giving the idea. It was just something I invented out of my limitation. And that then led to flipping houses where it was like, well, I'm going to have to figure out how to, like take it to the next level because I'm capped out flipping couches. Like all I can do is make like 10 grand a month. And it's great. Don't get me wrong, but like it won't get me to $1 million. Yeah. And so I was like, well, if a couch makes 200 and a house makes 20,000, why don't I just flip a different thing? And so sure enough, like we did it, right? And I still didn't have much money. It's not like I'd saved up all this money and stuff, but it was just like, I'm not going to like accept what everyone tells me. I'm going to say, this is the outcome I want. This is how much money I want to make while living a lifestyle that looks like this. For me, the lifestyle was playing pro baseball and being gone. And I'm going to figure out a vehicle that allows me to do both.
Do you intentionally place limitations on yourself now to further push on yourself and capitalize on your innovative ability?
1,000%. So
give me an example.
Okay, let's talk about M19, how we met with the golf mastermind. Okay. So here's how that got started. So, I started golfing 5 years ago. I bought a lot for my dream home on a golf course, and I didn't play golf. I was just like, yeah, this is the best community in Vegas. Like, let me, buy this lot. And when I buy the lot, I go, well, I mean, if I'm going to live on a golf course, I should probably learn how to golf. And so I start getting lessons and, I get the bug and I'm like, dude, golf is actually fun. I thought this sport sucked. And, like I get the bug. So then I start going to, get friends and stuff. And so I start taking my employees. And one day I realized I'm like, dude, they're not working now. Because I'm taking my employees to golf all the time. Like, I have employees so that I can go do things I want to do lifestyle-wise. Yeah. But now they're also not doing it. So now it's like, do I get employees for my employees? No, that doesn't make sense. So I was like, you know what? I need new friends. And I just sat there and I thought about it and I go, okay, what's the limit here? I want to golf every Friday with new people who are like me, right? And so I started thinking, like, how do I find these people? And at that time, I had a pretty big social media following by then. And I go, well, clearly, like, social media, like, these people follow me because they like me, So they would be ideal candidates because the people in my country club aren't. They're just old and retired. Like, we're not similar in that way. And so then I thought about it and I go, I bet you people would pay to golf with me because like they pay for consulting already. I already had a multi-million-dollar consulting business. And I was like, what better way than 5 hours of consulting while on a golf course having fun and whatever else? And I go, I've never heard of anyone doing this. Like, it doesn't exist. But like, that was the problem I was solving for. I said, how do I golf with cool people? And it wasn't even about making money. It was just like, how do I golf with cool people on a consistent basis? And then I thought, I actually think I could probably make money doing it too. So I launch it and I just post an Instagram story. I go, hey, I don't know if anyone's interested in this, but I love golf. Like, I've been doing this for a year and I want to golf with more like-minded people. Here's the deal. Okay. My normal consulting is $5,000 an hour. Okay. And that's us just sitting on a Zoom doing whatever. Okay. I'm going to do something that's way better than that. $2,500 for 5 hours. But here's the catch. Like, I'm not doing whiteboard crap and all this stuff. We're just going to go on the course and have a great time. It's going to be sick. Who wants it? 20 people bought in 24 hours from one Instagram story. So the next 6 months I was filled with golf. I was like, dude, this is nuts. Like, and everyone was cool. Like, everyone who paid to do that was totally bought in, high level, the conversations were great. And it was awesome. So then, I did that for years, just on the side, and I kept raising the price. Eventually it became 5,000, then 10,000, and people would buy it. Anytime anyone would ask for one-on-one consulting, I'd say, I don't do it unless it's on the golf course. And so I did that for years. And then what ends up happening is I'm like, I want to go on a trip, but I don't want to like pay for it. So I wonder what I could do. I was like, I bet you people would also want to go on a trip with me and like that would cover my cost. And so I booked my very first trip to Bandon Dunes in 2024. First golf trip of my life. And, I book it and I have 3 people, me and 2 of my employees. I'm like, I'm going to cover you guys. This is a little bonus for you. This trip's going to cost us like, $10,000 plus. If I just get one person to pay $10,000, we all went for free. So I posted on Instagram and one guy within 5 minutes buys it for $10,000. I was like, damn, that was free. And then I had all these other DMs of like, is it available? And I was like, dude, this demand is nuts. So then I was like, I'm going to get another foursome. So I get another foursome, sell the other 4 spots, and now there's profit. And it was the best time ever. Like, the people were sick. We had an awesome time. Bandon was great. My employees were great. I made some money and had a great, I was just like, this is awesome. And then I just was like, it was like, all right, cool, whatever. That was cool. That was a fun idea. And then the next year, 2025, I was like, let's just do it like annually. Right.
Okay.
So, I was like, all right, we're going to go to Paynes Valley. This time I knew there was obviously demand. And people from the last trip were like, dude, I want to go on the next trip. So I launch it. I get 12 spots this time because I just know it all sells out within like a day or two. And same price, $10,000. And this group of people, just awesome dudes. We have a blast. Big business owners. And during that trip, they all basically said the same thing. They said, dude, this was like the best thing ever. When's the next one? How do we stay connected? All that stuff. And, I didn't really put it together because I had told my team this too. I go, man, it would be so cool to like do this at more scale, but it's impossible because I can't go on a trip like every week, like it's just not scalable. And I was doing the math in my head and I'm like, even if we made say $100,000 a trip, it's like, how many times can I realistically do that? Like if I did it 12 times a year, that's $1 million business. Like, by the way, you get paid $1 million to play golf. Like, no one should be mad, but I'm like, my businesses do 8 figures. So like, I'm like, dude, it's like, that's not a business I want to be a part of where it's like the cap is $1 million a year, So my mind starts thinking, I go, yeah, man, that's the limit. It's like my limit is I'm willing to golf like once a month for my family. I have 4 kids. I'm married 12 years. Like I cannot leave, I was like, how can you build? Because clearly there's demand. Everyone loves it. I've been doing this for years. I love it. How can I build this in a way that's not limited by how many trips I can go on? And how do I make it less about me, you know? And so I sat there and I thought about it for a couple of weeks, this idea just brewing. And then like the form of M19 that we have today was born. I just thought about it and I said, man, you know, what if other people could golf with each other, you know, so it wasn't dependent on me. So they're all part of this thing and they can just all start to meet each other and network without me. Like that would be already a way that people would get a ton of value. Okay, that's number one. Number two, what if, you know, we do all these trips and then, I'll be on them at a peak of once a month. But after that, once it scales beyond that, I've created such a great group that it doesn't need me. You know, we could do a trip every week and people are still going to go. It's going to be awesome, right? And I was like, I think it would work, you know? Like based on what I've seen the last bunch of months, I'm going to do that. And then I thought about the last piece that really made it work and to where it is today was, you know, you've probably been a part of lots of masterminds. I've been a part of lots of masterminds. And one of the biggest problems with masterminds is like, you know, most of them, good ones anyways, are 30 grand, 50 grand, even 100 grand or more, right? And the way that they're normally structured is like, hey, it's let's just say 50 grand a year. We have 4 events a year, you know, and if you miss any of the events, you kind of got hosed. It is what it is. Like it's on you. Like you didn't go. And I was like, man, I don't like that model, number one. But then I said, number two, the other problem is like in golf, there's only a limited amount of people that can come on a trip. Like we can't get to 1,000 tee times. Like, you know, like there's 1,000 members in this thing. You can't book 1,000 tee times. I was like, you really can only book 30, 40, you know, whatever the number is. And so I sat there and I thought about it and I go, what if you solved both problems where the trips weren't included? You just had a way smaller yearly fee. And then it's just a la carte. They just pick whatever trips they want to go on that fit their schedules and all that stuff. So now, like, nobody feels like they didn't get the proper amount of value because you for sure got the proper amount of value. You bought exactly what you wanted. And I was like, this solves all the problems because now the more trips we have, the more options members have, and they go on exactly the trip they want. They're not forced into like, oh, I paid 50 grand for this thing. I better go to these 4 trips, even though I've been to this course before and this doesn't work with my schedule and blah, blah, blah. So then I was like, I think this is going to work. And so we launched with that model of basically being like, hey, you know, it's a yearly due that's way cheaper than that. And then just pay for trip. And the trips won't be 10K. They'll be more affordable because you're a member. And let's just go on as many as you want. And the model was born. And I mean, now it's been like 9 months and we have 300 plus members. And as we keep adding more trips. And next year, I think we'll have 20 plus trips. And, you know, the more members we have, the more connections can be made. You know, it's like, dude, it's actually good when we scale more because now, you know, if you're, where are you at again, Paul? I forgot.
Tampa, Florida.
Yeah. We got tons of guys in Southern Florida. And so like by the time we have, say, 100 people in Tampa, you know, down the road, it's like, dude, you got access to every private club in Tampa at that point. You know, you got your people that you're going to golf with every week at that point because it just gets better with scale.
Yeah.
So all that to say, it's long-winded, but like it was the limits that I was dealing with that created the innovation. The limits of how many tee times can a golf course have? What are people willing to pay? What am I willing to do? How many trips am I willing to go? There's so many limits that I had during this idea that there was only one solution because of the limits that also allowed me to hit my goals of saying, hey, look, I don't want a club with just like 100 people in it. That gets stale.
Yeah.
I want to build the best network of business golfers in the world. How would I solve for that?
And I love how you ended with the word solve, because as I'm listening, I'm hearing there's just a simple framework, a blueprint, if you will. Get really clear on what do I want? What is that desired outcome? What are the limitations? And just start creatively problem solving one by one. Am I correct?
Yep. 100%. That's all it is. So start with your end goal, then put your limits. And now with that framework, we start to figure out what we should do.
So here's the convoluted part I found, and maybe you'll agree, maybe you won't. So many people can run you a laundry list of what they do not want, but they struggle to get clarity on what they do want. Have you found that to be true too?
Yeah. We were at Pebble Beach, a couple weeks ago, and we had 48 guys there. And we're doing our breakout groups for the mastermind, which was like a whole nother part of like, how would I want my trips to look? What would be different about this trip versus another trip? And so like we do these masterminds that are business focused. Most other golf trips are like get drunk and just friggin' like play golf. That's what members are and stuff. But no, I was like, I want my trips to be business focused because that's what I want. I want time to meet other business owners, network, and then get problem solved. So anyways, we're talking about this, and one of the members brings up their problems of just like family life, and I think it's a big struggle with entrepreneurs. And in the Wealthy Way, I talk about that of just how I set limits to my schedule. Like I don't work weekends. I'm gone at the office by 5:00. That's it. I work 9 to 5. I don't work weekends. That's my life, and it's been my life for the last 8-9 years. And I built what I built on that schedule. So that's the limit I forced on myself. And, I'm grateful because I've had a great marriage. I've been married 12 plus years. I've got 4 young kids. And what I told one of our members, the name is Brett, really good guy. I said, look, dude, here's the deal. You have young kids. I have young kids. We're very similar age. We're both successful running 8-figure businesses. And I said, here's the deal. In 10 years from now, 20 years from now, do you think like you'll have your next innovative idea or business or whatever else? He's like, of course, like, I'm going to hustle till I die. Like, dude, I love this. And I'm like, me too. I love work. Like, I don't believe in retirement. Like I'm going to always come up with new stuff. It's going to be awesome. I go, so we can agree. We're always going to figure it out financially. He's like, for sure. I go, okay. So that's not a limit for us because we know for sure we can always make money. We've proven that in our careers over and over again. I go, but here's a limit that we both have. We have young kids that are guaranteed to be gone in the next 10 years. They're for sure gone. And they're going to be off on their own. They're going to go to college, whatever, right? So the limit that I'm working with is that I have 10 years with these kids at this age. And after that, they're gone. Now, how do I problem solve from that? Well, it's like that has to be the starting point of my decision making because that can't change. It's unchangeable. Versus I can make money and be innovative and do whatever I want over here for the rest of my life. Yeah. So I have to put that as he goes, I never thought of it like that. And I said, okay, so we both agree that our kids are a priority and we both agree there's nothing we can do to ever get these 10 years back from this point forward. We can't get them back ever again. And I said, so knowing that, how does that change how you schedule your day to day? And he's like, dude, you know what? I think I want to do what you're doing. I think I want to block out. I'm not going to work late anymore. I want to spend weekends. I'm like, that's what I chose, because it guarantees I don't miss that. And then now also I'm forced to think innovatively because I go, dude, I still have the same goals. I want to make a ton of money, a ton of impact. I want to build my brand. I want to start new things. That we're both on the same page there. But I'm starting with my limit, the number one limit in my life. And I'm going to reverse engineer a new way to reach that goal.
So it's interesting. And I've talked openly about this on my show before. So some of my longtime listeners know, like I have 50-50 with my son. So the days I have him, are totally night and day different compared to the days I don't. I try to work, hustle the days I don't. And I'm much more present and available. That has not come easy to me. That is a challenge because like you, I have these grand ambitions to change the world, have the biggest impact possible. I'm curious if you take us back to the eve or on the verge of having your first child, were there any similar struggles present? And if so, how did you navigate them?
Yeah. So I talked about this in the book. My first son, he had a ton of complications. So he was born 2 months premature. He was born he had to spend 2 months in the NICU for our first child. And so going through that with my wife was really difficult. The business wasn't doing great. we were having my first ever down year from the previous year. And so like I'm
Mm.
navigating this. Then, we're told that he was going to have special needs, which he did. He has autism, and other stuff. And we're like, wow, like this is like a whirlwind. And I'm just learning to be a present father and even an even better husband too, because like I'm over here fighting the business and the storms and all the stuff. And my wife is really struggling, seeing her firstborn in the NICU and then coming home and now having to like do these physical therapists and occupational therapy and all this stuff that normal kids don't have to do. And he has way more check-ins and just all this stuff. And then, like I made the choice right then and there because she was just, she came to me, she's like, this is like really hard. And I feel like you're not like there for me. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I feel like I'm there. And like, at this time, I'm still only working 9 to 5, by the way, so like in my mind, I'm like, what else do you want me to do? And she's like, I don't know, but I just like, I need more help. And I was like, you know what? Instead of like thinking from my own perspective, I'm going to like be there for my wife and my son. And so I started taking Wednesdays off. And so I went to 4 days a week for this season. And I was like, I'm going to just spend Wednesdays with you and James and like really just show you that you're the priority and that's more important to me, even if the business is having a tough time. Now, here's the deal. I still want the business to get out of its problem. I still want the business to succeed. And what ends up happening is I get even better at delegating by forcing myself out. And so the business does a very big turnaround, even though I was working less because I was forced to do things differently. But then what ends up happening is at the end of the year, so he's born in January, about 3 days before Christmas, he falls off a couch and bumps his head. He has a knot the size of a tennis ball on his head. We take him to the ER. They look at him. They say, he's acting fine. Nothing's wrong. I'm like, okay. They don't give him an x-ray, MRI, nothing. I'm like, all right. I mean, if you guys say so, we take him home the next day. I'm just like, dude, this isn't right. Let's go to a different place.
Yeah.
We go to a different place. They're like, they didn't even x-ray him or nothing. We're like, no, like we got to do that. They find out he's got a cracked skull and a brain bleed. His brain is actively bleeding. He's not even a year old yet. And so this ends up being like the cap of our year. And they're like, he has to go on emergency surgery right now. And, we're sitting there like, what if we wouldn't have brought him in? Number one, he'd be dead. And then number two, I'm like, is he going to make it? And they're like, we can't say. And so, for me, I'm a Christian and my faith has always been a strong part of my life. And, they're prepping him for surgery and I just start praying and I'm just like, God, you could have everything. You could have the business. You could have fame. You could have, I don't care about any of it. Like, I just want to see my son make it through this surgery. And if you get him out of this surgery, I promise I will commit everything to you. And that was the prayer. And I said, and like the other stuff just doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I know I can go make money again. I know I can go do social media. Like, I know I can rebuild those other things if they fail. I can't get my son back. So I said that was the prayer. And, they end up doing the surgery. It's successful. They let him out. We got him out on Christmas Day on that time. And also, too, by the way, during this time, my wife is pregnant and no one even knows with our second. And then, by the way, too, the next month, this COVID thing starts happening.
Oh,
so
my
like
goodness.
All this whirlwind of stuff just happened, during this 2019, 2020 year. And that became like, the original question was like, what made you kind of like start thinking this way and realize it was all of those circumstances from baseball to being a parent to being a husband where I just said, dude, the business stuff is great. I aspire to be an awesome business person. Don't get me wrong, but it by no way is even close to my number one priority. And
Mm.
I think most business people, it's the opposite. They will tell you their families first. They'll tell you their faith is first. They'll tell you these things. And then you look at their actions and their fruit and you're like, no, it's just not.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that and your vulnerability there. And your son is how old now? 7?
He's 7 now, yep.
Yeah. What a strong little man. That's incredible.
Yeah. And he's it's funny, he's still nonverbal right now, but he's still been in all these therapies and things his whole life.
Mm-hmm.
We've tried all these different like stem cells and stuff. And so we've seen, great improvement with that. But
Oh, good.
it's funny because he's actually like a giant. He looks like he's 9 or 10. So he
Okay.
has like this rare form of whatever it is, and like it makes him huge. So he's just like
Okay.
the most massive kid ever. And you're just like, he's funny.
Oh, that's amazing. So let me ask you this. Like I've learned so much in however long we've been talking, half an hour so far, but I want to hear from you because I could answer this question 5 different ways. If you had to choose one answer to this question, what's your superpower?
Hmm. I think it's basically what we've been talking about. Being able to identify the priority. And I
Mm,
think I've heard that before. I think it's from the Netflix founder. He talked about it. He said the best CEOs in the world are the ones that can identify what are the highest priority tasks that need to be accomplished, to hit the goal. Because most people don't, right? Most people
yeah.
they're busy. And so I'll be like,
Correct.
yeah, I'm like, what are you doing? Oh, well, I gotta do this. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's not that important, And it's like, well,
Yeah.
it has to get done. I'm like, it does have to get done, but it doesn't make it important. And
Mm,
so I think people struggle to see the most important thing. Like,
yeah.
even for me, like M19, let's just take this example.
Yeah.
I had I still have other businesses, but like, my other businesses have been the thing supporting me and like this thing was just for fun out of the blue. And like now I look at how fast it's growing and its potential and all these things. And I say, actually, I've seen enough to know. And I said this within 4 months. I go, this is the priority. This is going to be
Mm,
bigger than all of those things. And even though all those things require my attention, and so does this, I'm going to have to shift attention to this and do even more because I think
yeah.
there's this window in time that I currently have where um, we can just take the whole market. And I have this, I don't know how long the window is going to last, but I know there's a window and I
Mm-hmm.
have to capitalize on the window. And like you see it with AI and other stuff and companies that they're doing. Like when you see a window, you have a choice. You just go for it, you don't. And I've been kind of good at that over the years. Like I remember during COVID, I saw TikTok and I was like,
Okay.
this TikTok thing, Gary Vee's talking about it, other guy, like it seems
Mm,
interesting, but it's like it's kids. And, I'm
yeah.
like, let me just go on it. I'm like, dude, this is like really addicting. I don't even like watching social media, but this is cool. And I was
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna just try and make some video. And I make videos and they're going viral. I'm like, why am I getting like 50,000 views on this? I've never gotten 50,000 views in my life on anything.
Yeah.
I'm like, let's just like kind of do it hardcore. And then like I see the results and I'm like, I don't know how long this is gonna be like so easy, but let's just rip. And then sure enough,
Yeah.
within a year I had 400,000 followers.
Mm,
And I had, 75,000 followers on YouTube because they were both just kind of helping each
yep.
other. And, if you were to start TikTok today or YouTube today, 6 years later, it's not the same story. It is
No.
drastically harder. So it's like, could you see properly that, man, this is like a period of time where you have to just go all in and murder it? Like really talented
Yeah.
people can see those things.
Yeah. No, I love that. I was going to piggyback off your comment to my question about your superpower, that ability to identify with clarity what is the priority. You do a tremendous job executing, taking action, striking when the iron's hot, if you will. And I'm curious, like as I've gotten to know you, we got to spend some time on the golf course and during that day in Vegas for the mini mastermind with M19. your self-awareness, like you just exude clarity on who you are, you know what's important in your life, and you do an excellent job communicating and really leading with that. Have you always known yourself so well, or how have you gone about cultivating such strong self-awareness?
That's really good. I think most people lack self-awareness really bad.
Yeah.
And it just is like, I'm like, you don't see like what you're doing? Like, that's not a good look, dude. So I've been I've been critical my whole life to both good
Okay.
and bad, right? Like, it's not great to be
Mhm.
hypercritical of people, but like I've been critical
Uh,
of myself. I've been critical
mm,
of others. Like, and I think it came from my sports background where you're always in this game of being evaluated. And
yeah.
so, for me, I'm evaluated as a prospect and, whether I'm going to get drafted, whether I'm going to get a scholarship and, be the guy and you got to measure
Mm,
up.
yeah.
And, so like I had to be very clear of like, bro, I suck at XYZ. I better clean this up or like it ain't going to work. And then,
Yeah.
I'm hyper aware of like my personality and my tendencies. And I'm like, yeah, I
Mhm.
can see when I act this way, people don't really like that, I can see when I do these things, like it gets a good reaction, right? And I think then that then served me well when I went to start businesses and other things because you understand like leadership qualities and what
Mm,
being a good leader looks like and all that stuff. And you understand in sports too, because
yeah.
you get guys who are great team leaders and guys who aren't. And so I was like,
Yeah.
what makes a great leader? Um,
Mm,
and so, I learned different things over the years of that. And so, yeah, I think that part of it just came from experience in sports, but I will say the other part of it is literally simply from the Bible. And,
mm,
I had John Maxwell at my office and he did a little event in my workshop space that you saw where the
yeah.
homeschoolers now. And
Uh-huh.
he had talked about this and he was like, man, I've written all these leadership books and everything else, but did you guys know like pretty much all of it comes from the Bible? And
Hmm.
I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'll hear him say things that are like anyone would relate to, but I'm like, he's just quoting a Bible verse right here. And, you know, what I've realized is, okay, Jesus was the best leader of all time. Okay.
Mhm.
Like he served, he healed, tons of people followed him. 2 billion people follow him to this day. Like, what else do you want from a leader 2,000 years later, right? Like he's the best leader that
Yeah.
ever existed. And he's given us a blueprint of how to live life and how to lead and all these things. But what also that blueprint gives is not only what to do, but a lot of the Bible is making you aware of what you are. And so,
Hmm.
it's like, dude, like I'm a sinner. I got so many problems with lust, anger, you know, just stupid things that we as humans
Yeah.
do. And so you become hyper aware of your flaws and you're like, oh, like snap, I catch myself when I'm doing these things I know I shouldn't be doing.
Mhm.
And so I think part of it, actually, a lot of it is from that.
So let's go one step further. When you feel yourself slipping mentally, emotionally, whatever it may be, you're reactive, angry, scattered, less focused, or just generally off your game. What habits do you have to catch yourself, to recalibrate quickly, to get back maybe on track's a good description, or just to come back home to yourself more aligned?
Yeah, I mean, this is something only like Christians would probably understand, but like, we believe that we have the Holy Spirit living inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
And so what the Holy Spirit does is convict us and transform
Mm,
us from the inside out. And so um, the best example I can give is like, when somebody is just like living a life of sin, most people are just unaware. They're just like, yeah, I mean, what's wrong with sleeping around? What's wrong with having some drinks and having a good time, right? Like, and you're just
yeah.
unaware that it's wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you get saved, you're indwelled with the Holy Spirit, then all of a sudden you're like, huh, I don't think I should be doing it. And it's not even like guilt. It's just like, why do I like not want to do these things anymore? And so
Mm,
as Christians, we just believe we are transformed from the inside out. And it's not even from
mm-hmm.
our own, like will. It is
Yep.
literally just the transformation process. So, yeah, like for me, I would say that the Holy Spirit just continues to convict me to become more like Jesus. We would call that sanctification.
Okay.
But I would say for a normal everyday person, it's hard to say because I don't live like that of like, what would I do as like a hack, I'm like, I don't know. I just let the Holy Spirit just transform me. And like, that's all I really worry about. Like, I just keep it simple. But like, I don't know, hack wise, if you had to say, hey, like what's one thing that people could do to be more self-aware or catch themselves doing these things? I think it just first starts with somebody you trust, like giving you awareness that this is a problem, right? And somebody just like that you actually will listen to. It's like, I told one of my buddies, Christian guy on the trip, I go, hey, dude, can I bring something to your attention that I don't think you're aware of? And I just like, I'm going to say this in a loving way. And he said, yeah, dude, like bring it. I go, man, like I hear you talking about Jesus on one hand, and then you're just dropping F-bombs every other sentence. I'm like, those two things don't go together. And like, I could show you Bible verses and everything about unwholesome talk coming out of your mouth and all these things, but like, you do it and it's not a good look. It actually makes Jesus look bad. Like, that's just what it is. And like, some Christians or people might get offended and be like, bro, like, don't be legalistic. It's not that big of a deal, right? My intent is good. I just say it to be dramatic or, whatever, right? Or some might say, dude, you know what? You're right. Like, I didn't even realize that I do those things, but man, I'm trying to be better, right? And so I think it's just somebody bring into your attention the things that you're doing that your blind spots,
Yeah.
And once you're aware, I think you start catching it. You're like, man, do I really cuss that much? And you're like, dang, I kind of cuss a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think not to oversimplify your answer, but I think really some of the key points are there's a level of faith for you specifically. There's self-awareness. And then within that, there are people you trust. There's Jesus who are all on your side, helping bring your awareness, shining the light on your blind spots. And you have the wherewithal and the commitment to improving, taking feedback, data, whatever it may be, and being better.
For sure.
Yeah. So we've talked about, kind of, I'm going to call it your high performance approach, if you will, spiritually, financially, schedule, relationally. Talk to us about physically. You're a physically fit dude. I've seen you bomb the ball on the golf course. Though, if I remember correctly, hole number 1, I did outdrive you, neither here nor there.
You did a freaking speed on hole 1.
Yeah, but I think you had 10, 12 strokes on me after 9, so it didn't matter. Physically speaking, how do you prioritize your health? What's that look like?
By the way, for a guy who hasn't played a lot of rounds this year, you look great. So, kudos to you. But yeah, physically, it goes back to baseball, man. I mean, I've been a disciplined athlete my whole life. Actually, one of the companies that we just acquired this year, it's called All Pro CEO. So I'm an owner of that now. We just help people get fit, entrepreneurs specifically. And so like the process is pretty simple for us over there. It's like number 1, blood work. You got to know what's going on with your body. If you don't have a clue, then freaking it's hard to diagnose what needs to happen next. From there, okay, once we got blood, we have the right, not just workouts and food, but also peptides and hormones and everything that you need. So like, man, dude, I love peptides. I love all these different things that are now available to us that are just cutting edge. And so I've been doing those for like the last 3+ years. And I wasn't allowed to do them when I was playing. And so that was like a new mental shift of like, oh, I can actually take like, I'm just a YouTuber now. There's no drug testing. So, I started doing those things. And then, as far as the workouts and the food go, like I've just been an athlete my whole life. Like I know what needs to be done. Like I actually don't know any other way. Like my body at this point has been doing it. I'm 37 years old now. I've been doing it the last 20 years straight. Like I don't know another way to live of like doing the weightlifting that I've always done as an athlete, staying in shape, eating the right, like, and it's fun because golf has now given me like a new purpose to like even be more physically fit versus before when you're a business guy, you're just like, as long as I'm like in good enough shape, like it's all good. But now like I see myself in the videos on the course and stuff and I'm like, bro, you look a little soft. Okay. Like you need to clean it up.
Are you working out first thing in the morning?
Yeah. Yeah. So my workout is about an hour a day, 4 days a week. I'll spend a few days if I got time hitting the sauna. We got a sauna in my house. I got the gym in my house too.
Cool.
I also stretch a lot. I think stretching is a really big deal. A couple of the M19 guys were asking me that. They're like, how do you hit the ball so far? And I was like, well, I mean, it's a combination of strength and like having an efficient swing. But I would say the main thing that I think is really important is mobility. And a lot of guys are just very tightly wound up. And I was always a guy who stretched a lot, even when I was playing. And I was fortunate because in 8 seasons of playing baseball, I only had to go on the injured list one time in 8 years, and it was a freak accident. I stole a base, and the third baseman stepped on my hand with his cleat and broke my hand. So I couldn't really.
Wow.
Yeah, I couldn't prevent that one, but like, never had a hamstring pull, never had a sore arm. Like, I just always kept my, muscles very limber because I just understood, like, dude, if I'm tight, I'm gonna pull something. And so I see that now as I get older. I'm like, dude, if I want to play golf at a high level the rest of my life, like the number one thing is going to be my mobility.
Mm-hmm. That's funny you say that. So when I first got back into golf, I come from a powerlifting and a competitive bodybuilding background. I thought I could just muscle my way through the golf swing. Dude. And I am sore, tight in places I didn't know existed. And fortunately, shout out to Sean. He's my golf specific fitness coach. He's got me moving in ways I didn't think were possible. And like you, I am stretching daily and I feel lost if I don't get my stretches in.
Yep. Dude, stretching is so important. And, yeah, like, dude, I'll be sitting here right now and I'll just be like talking to people and like just doing the things like I just naturally did from baseball.
I take some of my calls like a little meditation pillow. I'll sit in all these awkward positions while I'm taking them just to stretch out. So
you're just like stretching your hips and like.
Yeah, dude, it's all hips and glutes.
Yep.
All hips. Oh, man. Dude, this has been nothing short of phenomenal. Let me get you out of here on this. For the person listening who looks successful on the outside, but inside they're struggling. There's a friction, a lack of clarity. They feel stuck. What's one truth that they need to hear today to move forward?
If they're feeling stuck, let me think. I mean, look, trying to like, if you want to lose weight, you want to build your business, even faith, if you're like, look, dude, I just feel kind of stuck in whatever area of life, you need to find somebody who's doing it the way you want to do it. And you really need to learn from them. I mean, it's a generic answer, like get a mentor, but it's true. It's like, look, if my faith is weak, I need to go find a really strong believer or a pastor or somebody who can really disciple me. If I'm out of shape, clearly I don't know how to be in shape. So I need to find somebody who is in shape, but also doing the things I want to do, right? Like I don't need to be a bodybuilder in golf. I want to be a great golfer, And then in business, it's like, look, there's lots of business philosophies, but I want to learn from somebody who's doing what I want to do in business and doing it the way I want to do it, right? Because back to the original conversation of, hey, bro, just work 80 hours a week. That's what I did. And I'm obviously killing it. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not willing to do that. And they're like, well, then I don't have a solution for you because my solution is brute force. And I'm like, all right, see ya. But then, I'll go find a guy who's like got a great family and, doing what I want to do and making great money. And maybe they're not making $100 million a year. I'm like, that is what I want. How did he do that?
Asking for help accelerates results. I say this so many times on this podcast, so I'm delighted to hear you echo that. And I'm going to link your book below. I'm going to link your podcast, your social media, of course. But tell the listeners, too, a little bit more about M19. Obviously, we talked about it, but for someone listening whose interest has been piqued, I can be a walking testimony all day. Who do you want to join that community, and who is it for?
Yeah, so it is for business owners doing at least 7 figures in their business that want to hang out with other 7, 8, and 9-figure entrepreneurs who love golf. It's that simple. And if that's you, we have everything you would ever possibly want. We've got online community where people are connecting. We got members all across the country. We're growing rapidly every single month. You get access to private clubs with all these members. You got connections for your business. We have literally the membership is so diverse of like what people
It's insane.
do. The diversity is nuts. I mean, I don't care if you're blue collar. I don't care if you're professional services, if you're a coach, if you are a real estate investor. It's just
a paleontologist on the side. I mean,
we have them all. We have doctors, healthcare, everything you would ever want. And these people are doing their professions at the highest levels, So yeah. And then, take the business out of it. We got all the best places in the world. We just got back from Pebble Beach. We were at Pinehurst a month before. We're going to St. George this month. We're, going to Abandoned Dunes. We're going to paint. Like we go to every hot spot in the world. And then we also do private course stuff too. So yeah, that's a pretty easy sell if you like golf and you're a 7-figure plus business owner. And if you do want to apply, just go to mastermind19.com and make sure you tell them that Paul sent you, because we want to know and we want to support, his community and everyone who listens to this show.
Cool. Ryan, an absolute blast. Thank you so much for your time and your wisdom.
Yeah, bro. Appreciate you having me. Appreciate you being a part of the community and looking forward to teeing it up again, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Unstuck High Performer. And as always, I leave you with one simple ask and a critical reminder. I know this episode spoke to you. It challenged you. And I also know that there is someone in your inner circle who will also find tremendous value from listening to today's conversation. So my ask is simple. Share this specific conversation with one person who you know needs to hear the messaging and wisdom that Ryan shared. And if this episode resonated with you, really spoke to you, take that seriously. It usually means that a part of you knows it's time for change. And if you're a high performer ready to break free from what's been holding you back and keeping you stuck, you need to take action now. You can use the link in the show notes to apply for one-on-one private coaching so that you and I can work together to help you get unstuck, out of your own way, to unlock and experience your potential. Thank you again for tuning in. Make today great, and we'll catch you in the next episode.